Depending on what you're going to be using the material for will help dictate where you can source your file from. If you're looking for a specific material from a manufacturer, then you can find the image or texture on their website or by searching online for a texture that closely matches what you're trying to replicate. Using a search engine like Google and entering in key phrases like seamless texture will also help narrow down the results. If you're trying to match an existing finish, you can take a picture of the finish with your camera and then save the image to a computer so that you can edit it later. When sourcing your textures, you will want them to be in either a JPEG or a PNG format. Unless you are creating a transparent image, then you should be saving your texture in a BMP or PNG file format. Once you have found the material you want to use, you can then save the material to your computer. Next, we're going to be looking at editing the material. When you apply a material in Envisioneer, it copies it across the face of the receiving object. If the material is smaller than the object, it will continuously repeat the material to fill the face of the object. This can have some undesirable effects if the material has a definitive edge that is repeated across the face of the object, making the material appear fake. Once you have the material saved to your computer, you can start to edit it if needed to remove any parts of material that would make it not repeat correctly. If you have a photo editing software like Photoshop, you can open it in that application. If not, using Microsoft Paint will work just as well. The purpose of editing the material is to make sure that when it is tiled, it will look seamless in your design. You do not want parts to be brighter than others or to have the edges of the texture visible when tiled. So let's open our texture in Microsoft Paint. On my desktop, I have already found a texture, so I'm going to open Paint. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to select underneath File, I'm going to select Open, and I'm going to open the texture from the location of where I've saved it. Make sure to zoom all the way out so that everything is visible on the screen. Under the Home tab, we're going to use the Select option, and we're going to create a window around the portion of the texture that we want to use. Since we are trying to create a seamless texture, we will make sure to select from one edge of the batten to the other. So I'm going to get close to the edge of this, and I'm going to left click once to start my select window, and I'm going to hold my mouse button down, and then I'm going to drag it all the way over. So again, I'm trying to create a seamless texture. So I want the board and then the batten to repeat. So since I have the batten included on this side, I'm going to make sure that it is excluded on the opposite side. And I'm just going to get this close to the edge, and then I'm just going to release my left mouse button. And this will create a box around the area showing me the texture within it. Now all I have to do is click Crop, and it will remove the rest of the material away, leaving me just the tileable portion of the texture that I'm creating. I'm now going to go up, I'm going to select File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as a JPEG image. And we're going to go in and say JPEG, and then in the Save As dialog box, I'm going to save this to the Textures folder within Envisioneer. So to do that, I'm going to go down to the C drive, and then I'm going to select underneath Program Data. I'm going to select CADSoft, Envisioneer, and then I'm going to select Textures. I'm going to give it a name that I want to use, and here you can see I have it set to Gray Board and Batten Siding, and then I'm just going to click Save. And that will now save that texture into the Textures folder for me. Just a quick note, if you do not see the Program Data button, then you need to enable Show Hidden Files and Folders and Drives. This can be done within the File Explorer dialog by going to the View option. So if we select our Windows Explorer, if we go to View, we can then go to Options. Underneath the View tab, you're going to want to make sure you have the Show Hidden Files, Folders, and Drives option selected. Also, a quick note here, if the material you are bringing in is going to have a transparent portion to it, you will need to make sure that the area that will be transparent is set to a magenta color. And this will have an RGB value of 255, 0, 255. So if I select the Edit Colors option and I want to make a portion transparent, I would make sure that I set this to be 255, green would be 0, and blue would be 255, and that will give me the magenta color. Once I've specified the area that's going to be transparent with that magenta color, I will need to save this texture as either a bitmap or as a PNG file. Next, we're going to look at adjusting the material. So once you have edited the texture and saved it to the textures folder, you can now create a new texture within Envisioneer. In Envisioneer, we will be able to give the material a name and adjust the properties to reflect how it should be rendered. Adjusting these variables will help in achieving a photorealistic material. So let's go into our catalogs. We're going to go up to File, Catalogs, and we're going to select Library Manager. Once the Library Manager opens, we're going to navigate to the folder where we want to save our new material. As an example, we've created a wood panel wall siding, so we're going to save ours to the wood panels folder. So I'm going to scroll right down to the bottom and I'm going to select wood panel. I'm also going to scroll down into the materials portion. I'm just going to select the last material that's in the list, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to select add material. This will bring up the materials properties dialog box, and in here we can start to define exactly how we want this material to look. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust the name. We're going to name this Gray Board and Batten Siding. Next, we have under the properties the material type. And under the material type, we can adjust how this is going to be set up. So we have a generic option, we have a diffuse option, and we also have a Lampert and a Phong. We're going to set ours to be just a generic option. So under properties, underneath the diffuse section, we are going to adjust what we're going to be using. So texture is what we want to use. So we're going to make sure we select the texture, and then it's going to ask us to select the texture that we want to be grabbing. And in this case, we're going to use a texture from the textures folder that we just created. So I'm going to search for that gray wainscot panel option that we have added in, and we're just going to scroll in here and type in gray, and we then should see gray board and batten siding. And then we're going to say OK, and that's going to open up that texture for us. We also have a tile height. Now in the texture map, the tile height references the height of the texture as well as the width of the texture. There is also a constrain option, which you can see this little lock here. So whatever I adjust the height, the width will also adjust with it. So if I want to make sure that this is adjusting according to how I want it to be and be accurate, I will most likely need to uncheck the constrain option, so that way I can control both the height and the width separately. In this case, we're going to have a 7-inch panel with a 1-inch thick batten. So we're going to count how many we have going across here. So we go 7, 14, 21, 28. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be 32 inches wide. And then we can have the height will be 8 feet. And then the tile width will be 32. So we're essentially saying that we want the height of the tile to be 8 feet and we want the width to be 32 inches wide. Just another quick note in here, you're going to check the Make Magenta Color Transparent option in the Textures Map dialog if there is a transparent portion to the material. We do not have a transparent portion, so we will leave ours unchecked. Under that, we have the texture intensity, and this controls the brightness and the contrast of the textures. The value ranges from 0 up to 2. By default, it is set to 0.8, and we will leave ours at the default of 0.8. We're now going to click OK, and that's now created our new texture so we can see how it looks. If you're adding in a texture that has raised edges or wrinkles, you will want to take advantage of the bump feature. This will help give the texture the appearance of depth when it's rendered. Next, we have emissive. The emissive option allows you to control how much light the texture is going to give off. This one is not going to have any light emitting off of it, so we're going to keep ours set to 0. The opacity option controls how transparent your texture is going to be. Again, we're creating siding, so it's not going to be transparent at all. Then we have specular. The specular option controls how shiny a texture is going to be. And again, we're going to leave ours set to 0 because we don't want to give it any kind of a shine. The reflection option allows you to control how reflective a texture will be. So if you want your texture to have a bit of a reflection to it, you can use the slider to control how much reflection the object will give off. The IOR, or the index of refraction, this describes the way light bends when crossing the material surface. A value of 1 means that the light will not change direction. Selecting a material from the drop box, be that air, water, crystal, diamond, will populate the IOR edit box with the index of refraction for that specific material. If you would prefer to specify a custom value, you can select the custom option, and then in the edit box you can type in whatever value you want for the IOR. The last option we see here is Fresnel. When this is enabled, the reflection strength becomes dependent on the viewing angle of the surface. Some materials in nature, like glass, reflect light in this manner. Note that the Fresnel effect depends on the index of refraction as well. We're now going to go to the Information tab. And under the Information tab, we're going to make some adjustments in here. So just a quick note here, usages are used for filtering the materials list when efficiently finding a material when using the paintbrush feature. So it is important to make sure that you have a material usage specified for the material that you're working with. In our case, we are going to be having ours set to wood. So when I am doing a search for wood, I will see this material siding show up in that list. There's also an assembly and a manufacturer's option in here. The assembly option applies pricing information to a material, so that is accounted for in the project cost. And then the manufacturer option allows you to link the texture with a specific manufacturer and their website. We're going to leave ours both set to none. Once we've made all of our changes, we can say OK, and that new texture is now added to our catalog, and we can now use that for any projects that we may be creating. We hope this tooltip helps you moving forward. If you like what we're creating, press the like button and be sure to subscribe for future videos. If you have any comments, please let us know in the comments section below. Thank you.